I actually met Ron at, I was actually at year 72, so I was 1 year behind you guys, but at Mather. But Ron and I met in the dummies section of George Bayer's algebra trig class at Mather High, where every day Ron and I would be selected to go up and write algebra trig problems on the board, not knowing what the hell we were doing, just so Mr. Bayer could say, I see. There's the right way, and then there's the Strohl way, and the Stern way. So this is how we bonded, and that's why I actually met everybody else because of that. But I think back on there's so many stories, it's endless when I think of how much joy there was in knowing Ron and how much part of my formative high school and slightly after years those were. But some things stand out that maybe were more unique, like, because I've had a long career as a musician since then, and Ron actually was a drummer. I think everybody remembers Ron was quite a good drummer, actually. And I remember playing music with him early on, and I remember a couple of amazing times when Ron had moved out of Mom's house and moved into an apartment on Winthrop, I think it was. It's an apartment. I don't remember who else lived there. I just remember Ron living there. I remember, are any of his roommates from that place here?
Yeah, Tertius.
Okay, yeah, because I remember who else lived there. But Ron, I don't know, I think Ron invented this idea back in the days when there were phones that you could stick. They were two-line phones with a rotary knob. And we discovered that if you called two different people on each line and you stuck the knob in between, you could connect the two people to each other. And each one would think that the other person had called them. So we would spend hours doing this, hooking up everybody. Like George would get a call and Jeff would get a call and it'd be like, Jeff, you called me. No, you're crazy. You called me. And we'd be sitting there laughing, knowing this whole time. And I can't remember who we finally, there was one person, I think it was Corwin Glick, I think it was. We hooked up Corin with every single person we knew over and over again. We kept calling him and everybody else. And we spent the whole night doing it. It's just hours of fun we had. Yes, I just looked up people, random people. But because everybody thought the other person was calling them, it was amazing hilarity that would ensue with that. This was the mind of Ron Strohl in action, creating this amazing event. Then Ron also had an interestingly checkered career as the owner of a thing called the Horse's Mouth, which was actually a racetrack messenger service. If you think back to the days when it was actually legal in Chicago to go to a store or to a storefront where you could place a bet, and then ostensibly they would take the bet to the track for you. And I was actually Ron's employee at this place. So it was my job to watch the store when he wasn't there and take the bet to the track when they came in. Of course, Ron's penchant for being the master horse player that he was would sometimes take a little risk with some of those bets. And not all of them actually journeyed to the track. And he actually, I don't think, ever actually lost one of those, so it was kind of interesting. But I remember using his rather amazing orange Firebird that he had at the time. I believe he had a Firebird Trans Am back then. Amazing car. I was just thrilled to drive his Trans Am to do this. And invariably there would be a police officer stationed outside this place. It was on Irving Park in Laramie, I think it was. There would be a police officer stationed in front of the place who would be waiting for me to leave with that car and would follow me up to where the expressway was. So I'd be getting on going south towards the racetrack. He would then tail off, and if I didn't have any bets actually getting booked at that point, I would wait till he was going to come back to the storefront. So that was quite amazing. But I mean, there's so many stories. And it's kind of interesting because Ron joined a band. I can't remember what the name of the band was, but there were many years where he was playing at a bowling alley in Elgin with this band. And there was a fellow named Dan who was the guitar player, and Linda was the lead singer of this band. And if we think back to the 70s when this won, there was a concept known as swingers back then. So they were an interesting couple. They actually lived just down the street from here, around Wolf Road and Palatine. So let's just say there were some interesting parties that I attended with Ron, with this amazing group of folks that he had fallen in with at this band. It was quite interesting. But, and again, stories could be endless. We could go on forever. But I think the thing that really stands out is that when I think of Ron, I laugh, and I always laugh every time I think of him, because I can think of very few people who I ever enjoyed their company so much that any time we did the least little thing, it was always fun, it was always hilarious, and there was a whole group of people having a great time. So really, it's just a tremendous thing. He was a tremendous guy, and I think the best way we can honor him is to continue to live our lives with vigor and joy and happiness as he did. I'm just sorry, I never actually got to meet the kids. pleasure to meet you. Anyone else?